Imagine waking up one day and realizing that almost everything you were taught, everything you trusted, everything you built your identity around no longer works. Not because you failed, but because the world quietly moved on without asking your permission. By 2070, science says most of what we call knowledge today will be outdated, replaced, or forgotten. Careers will vanish, beliefs will collapse, and certainty will become a liability. The question is not whether this will happen, it is whether you will resist and suffer or understand it early and evolve. Stay with me, because what you're about to hear may change how you see the future and yourself forever. What humanity calls knowledge has never been truth in the absolute sense. It has always been a temporary map drawn by limited perception. Every era believes it has finally understood reality, yet history keeps exposing this belief as arrogance disguised as confidence. The Earth was once flat, then it was the center of the universe, then time was absolute, matter solid, and space empty. Each certainty felt final until a deeper observation shattered it. Knowledge is not discovered and then completed. It is negotiated between human curiosity and the boundaries of awareness at a given moment. What works today feels sacred only because it functions within current limits. The moment perception expands, yesterday's clarity turns into today's misunderstanding. Science itself quietly admits this truth, though society prefers not to hear it. Every theory is provisional, every equation an approximation, every model a guess refined by error. Knowledge is useful, not eternal. It is like scaffolding around a building that keeps changing shape. The scaffolding must be removed and rebuilt again and again. Yet people begin to worship the structure meant only to support growth. This attachment to maps creates the illusion of certainty, and certainty creates stagnation. The danger is not that knowledge expires, the danger is that humans identify with it. When your sense of self is built on what you know, every new discovery feels like an attack. The ego resists evolution by defending outdated conclusions as personal territory. That is why progress often meets hostility before acceptance. The mind prefers familiar errors over unfamiliar truth. By 2070, much of what feels unquestionable today will look like a child's sketch of reality. Not because our ancestors were foolish, but because intelligence naturally outgrows its old language. Knowledge was never meant to be permanent, it was meant to be abandoned once it had carried awareness. Far enough science does not move forward by protecting its past. It advances by questioning it relentlessly. What people often misunderstand is that scientific growth is not an accumulation of permanent truths, but a continuous process of self-correction. Each breakthrough quietly carries a hidden funeral for the ideas that came before it. Newton was not wrong, he was incomplete. His laws worked beautifully until reality revealed layers that required Einstein, and even Einstein now stands as a stepping stone rather than a destination. Science evolves by erasing its own confidence, replacing certainty with deeper uncertainty that is closer to reality than rigid answers ever were. This self-erasing nature is not a flaw, it is the very intelligence of science. A belief system defends itself when challenged, but science invites challenge because it understands that error is the doorway to refinement. Every equation has an expiration date. Every model carries the seed of its own replacement. What society calls settled science is simply science waiting for better questions. The universe is not obligated to make sense within the limits of human language or mathematics, and when observation improves, explanations must collapse to make room for something more accurate. Yet humans struggle with this humility. They want conclusions, not processes. They want fee. Now answers because uncertainty feels uncomfortable. But science thrives precisely where comfort dissolves. It grows in the space where old explanations fail, where confusion forces deeper observation. This is why the future does not arrive gently. It disrupts, dismantles, and rebuilds. By 2070, many frameworks that dominate textbooks today will feel crude, not because they were useless, but because science does not honor loyalty. It honors accuracy. What survives is not the theory itself, but the method that allowed it to be questioned, discarded, and surpassed again and again. Technology is no longer moving at the speed of human comprehension. It is accelerating beyond emotional and biological adaptation. For most of history, knowledge lived inside people, passed slowly from mind to mind through language, books, and lived experience. Memory had weight, and learning required time. Today, machines absorb, process, and reorganize information at a scale that makes human knowing feel almost ceremonial. Artificial intelligence does not remember the way humans do. It does not forget, doubt, or hesitate. It stores without attachment and updates without nostalgia. As a result, knowledge has migrated away from the human nervous system and into external systems that evolve independently of human rhythm. This shift quietly changes the value of what it means to know something. When information is instantly accessible, memorization loses importance. When machines predict better than intuition, expertise feels fragile. When algorithms learn faster than teachers can teach, education begins to trail behind reality rather than prepare for it. Human knowledge starts to age the moment it is learned, because technology updates itself continuously, while the human mind requires rest, repetition, and meaning. The gap between machine memory and human understanding widens each year. The deeper consequence is psychological rather than technical. When machines become the primary holders of knowledge, humans begin to outsource trust, judgment, and even curiosity. People stop asking why and focus only on how to use it. This creates a subtle dependency where knowing becomes less important than accessing. The mind becomes a user interface rather than a living laboratory. By 2070, much of what people once prided themselves on knowing will exist mainly as machine-managed archives. Human intelligence will not disappear, but the role of personal knowledge will transform from possession to navigation, from storage to interpretation, from certainty to relationship with ever-changing systems. Modern education was designed for a slower world, a world where knowledge changed gradually and skills could last a lifetime. It trains memory, repetition, and compliance with established frameworks rather than the ability to question, adapt, and unlearn. Students are rewarded for recalling what is already known, not for sensing what is about to change. Diplomas and degrees create the illusion of permanence, as if learning were a finished transaction, rather than an ongoing relationship with uncertainty. This system worked when professions evolved slowly, when tools remained stable, and when mastery meant refinement rather than reinvention. Today, reality no longer respects that pace. Technologies emerge and vanish within years, sometimes within months. Entire industries appear before educational institutions can name them. What is taught is often already historical by the time it reaches a classroom. This creates a silent gap between preparation and reality, where graduates step into a world that no longer resembles the one they trained for. The shock is not merely economic, it is existential. When a person's identity is built around a profession that disappears, the collapse feels personal, as if the self itself has been invalidated. Education rarely prepares people for this psychological instability. It teaches certainty without resilience, and answers without adaptable. It conditions individuals to expect continuity in a world defined by disruption. As a result, many experience fear, resistance, or denial when faced with change, clinging to outdated roles because letting go feels like failure. By 2070, the most painful obsolescence will not be of jobs, but of identities shaped by rigid education. Those who suffer most will not be the unskilled, but the over-attached. Survival will belong to those who treat learning as a fluid process, who remain students of reality rather than graduates of the past. Human certainty feels comforting because it gives the mind a sense of control in an unpredictable universe. To say "I know" is to draw a boundary around chaos and declare safety inside it. Yet this psychological refuge quickly becomes a prison. The moment certainty forms, curiosity weakens. Questions are replaced by conclusions, and awareness narrows into defense. What began as understanding hardens into belief, and belief quietly resists growth. Intelligence does not stagnate because information stops arriving. It stagnates because the mind decides it has arrived. The ego plays a central role in this attachment. Knowledge becomes identity, and ideas turn into personal property. When a belief is challenged, the mind does not hear a question, it hears a threat. This is why people defend outdated views with emotion rather than evidence. Being wrong feels humiliating because it fractures the image the self has built around knowing. In this way, certainty becomes the greatest obstacle to intelligence, not ignorance. Ignorance can ask, certainty can only argue. History repeatedly reveals this pattern. Revolutions in thought are rarely welcomed by experts of the previous era. New ideas are mocked, resisted, or feared until time makes resistance irrelevant. The tragedy is that the more knowledgeable a person becomes within an old framework, the harder it is for them to step beyond it. Expertise can create blindness when it becomes rigid. By 2070, the world will not punish those who lack information. Information will be abundant. It will punish those who cling to obsolete understanding as if it were identity. Survival will belong to minds that can loosen their grip, remain playful with ideas, and treat being wrong not as failure but as evolution and motion. When everything external is in constant motion, the only thing that does not expire is the quality of awareness itself. Facts change, tools evolve, systems collapse and rebuild, but the ability to observe without panic remains untouched by time. Consciousness is not a collection of information, it is the space in which information appears and disappears. This is why awareness survives every revolution while knowledge ages. A person who is awake can enter any era and learn its language, while a person who only knows is stranded when the language changes. Curiosity, presence, and inner flexibility are not skills in the conventional sense, they are states of being. They do not depend on technology, education, or authority. They allow the mind to remain soft in the face of disruption. Where rigid knowledge breaks under pressure, awareness bends and adapts. The future does not belong to those who memorize the most data, but to those who can stay centered while data reshapes itself around them. As machines increasingly handle calculation, storage, and prediction, human relevance shifts inward. The human role becomes interpretation, meaning, and ethical sensitivity. Machines can process patterns, but they do not experience wonder, doubt, or silence. Consciousness is the realm where insight arises, not through accumulation, but through clarity. In a world of accelerating change, clarity becomes more valuable than competence. By 2070, those who invest only in external mastery will feel perpetually behind, chasing updates that never end. Those who cultivate awareness will move calmly through change, learning quickly because they are not defending an identity built on outdated knowledge. Consciousness does not compete with the future, it cooperates with it, remaining timeless while everything else is replaced. The future is not coming to destroy humanity, it is coming to expose illusion. What will vanish by 2070 is not intelligence, wisdom, or human value, but the comfort of certainty we have mistaken for truth. Knowledge was never meant to be permanent shelter. It was a bridge, useful only until awareness could cross to a wider view. Science does not betray us by changing its mind, it remains honest by refusing to stop questioning. Technology does not diminish humanity by advancing faster than us. It reveals where we must evolve inwardly rather than externally. Education, careers, and identities will dissolve and reform again and again, and the suffering will not come from change itself, but from resistance to it. The only thing that truly survives is the capacity to observe without fear, to unlearn without humiliation, and to meet uncertainty with curiosity instead of panic. Those who cling to what they know will feel lost, while those who remain aware will feel at home in every new world that emerges. Good luck on your journey into the unknown. May you stay flexible where others become rigid, curious where others become afraid, and aware where others seek false certainty. Thank you for listening, for questioning, and for having the courage to remain awake in a world that is constantly becoming something new.